is Sunday in Ybor City, where it all began and where they have an auto show today with some really cool cars.
It's a spooky car show.
It's a spooky car show. And here we are in the Chillum CBD Emporium at 1714 7th Avenue in Ybor City. It's time to jump, and I'm not going to pound on the table. The rotation. That was so smooth. You must be sober.
I know 300 milligrams today, but 300 milligrams for today's show, and we're going to prove that I work better on high amounts of cannabis.
Okay, well, I am your political director of Suncoast Normal, Gary Stein, with my co-host, Carlos. Don't call me Pedro. It's a Mexican thing. Armida.
Yeah, stop. I'm Cuban.
And coming from above the Beltway, we have our executive director, Chris Cano, who's going to give us a lowdown on what's things going on. But first, let's also introduce our special guest, and I'll go ahead and pass it on to you, Carlos.
This is Francesca. She's part of the Epilepsy Foundation. I'm probably not the best person to introduce her. So she's having the Epilepsy Foundation is having an epilepsy walk today, and epilepsy is such an important part of the medical cannabis realm.
That's
and
true.
That's something that we talk about, right, Gary?
And yes, and if I hate to say it, but if it weren't for epilepsy, we wouldn't have so many programs right now, because it did trigger the MEDA weeds program, and which allowed a lot of CBD bills to come online, which have evolved into cannabis programs. So,
you're talking about that whole weeds Sanjay Gupta type thing.
Yeah,
right?
and it was all because of the amount of empathy poured out for Charlotte Figi with her Dravet syndrome, that we have gotten onto this place, and so we have respect for the folks who work on epilepsy. We know how dangerous the disease can be. With every single seizure, there is just a little bit that we lose every single time. And the whole idea is we need to stop it.
Let's go even deeper into that, because the epilepsy really does have an even deeper issue with the families that struggle with it.
Absolutely.
I've seen epilepsy really put families in some really trying situations. And big ups to you, Francesca, for trying to help everybody out. Like it's very selfless to do that. Medical marijuana, being a part of this whole medical marijuana activism scene, I've seen it firsthand, and it's terrifying stuff.
So, Francesca, what is your skin in the game?
Okay, well, I first have epilepsy.
Oh, hi.
I am 44 years old. I've had it since I was 5 years old. So I have to take drug medicines, because one thing that I explain to people is that I wish I could take medical marijuana, because I'm about to get a license for sleep, so I take it for that. But I'm on the advisory board of the Florida Epilepsy Foundation, and we are the main in Central Florida. So we control everything. So what we have done is the Epilepsy Foundation all through the United States has said that people who have uncontrolled seizures is another alternative, because what we're trying to do is show people that it's okay to get it, whether you're older, to help you with sleep, because it helps with that, and to teach parents that this is another solution, like you said with the Sanjay Gupta thing. Because having someone with epilepsy, I'm not going to lie that I think it's probably a good alternative for kids, because as you grow, and I just remember this, whatever medicine you're taking, and you're lucky to have controlled seizures, it starts to adapt to your hormones and things like that, because I didn't have, my seizures were under controlled to probably till the age of 12, and then my medicine adapt. So, but for kids, like you saw with Charlotte, as she grew, she adapted to it. She actually, I think she died of COVID. She didn't die from actual seizures.
It was COVID related, and it actually was a cardiac thing that occurred.
Yes, it was COVID related. So What we're here to do is one of the most amazing things. We're having our first annual statewide. It's all over the state of Florida. They're having a walk, and I'm announcing, and it's so amazing. We're the very, very first. We got 2 dispensaries, Move and Cureleaf, to be a part. And I know Chris, y'all are putting on it, and it's called #GoPurple. We're wanting people to walk and spread the word. And if you donate $100, it's on that link. You get a T-shirt, and you get to have that. And the more people we can get involved and to understand, because if you look at me, you're like, that woman doesn't have epilepsy. And to understand this permanent disease, I mean, I would have people come up to me and say, "You don't look like you're epileptic," and I would be like, "Do I have to have a stamp on my head or something?" But it's so important, especially, you're right, it's engaged this community, and it helps people, and we're just trying to spread the word to get more people involved. And I believe that if we do this could probably help pass more bills, because parents in schools are having problems like with dosing, and it's a lot of work because a lot of kids are using this, and there's 30 to 40% of uncontrolled seizures. I'm lucky, but most people are not lucky. And the Epilepsy Foundation nationwide realizes that. And they've written letters to the FDA saying that this is really important. Cannabis is important. And I think this would be a good step to help people to legalize cannabis, because it's too hard. I couldn't imagine a parent with a child going state to state, or an adult who actually is, maybe it actually works for them, trying to go to another state and saying, you can't take your medicine over there. If I don't take my medicine, I will have a seizure, and I would die. So if you have cannabis and you try to take it to another state, this is a sole reason why I think medical cannabis should be legal, because you can't travel to Texas or another state with the risk, and a parent would take a risk for their child.
Yeah,
So
Texas is a whole nother thing altogether.
yes, it is a whole nother thing altogether. And
It'll give you a lot of choices.
Yes, they don't give you a lot of choices, but I'm using that as an example. I'm actually from Texas. But it's the whole idea that they would take that risk if it's actually working. And we need to support that, especially with kids. Kids, this is working with them because they're growing, their brain is adapting. Sometimes we're old and our brains just get set in their ways. And I think this is such an important thing, that the more that we support and show and get more people involved, I think the more it will affect Congress. And that's why I'm here. And so if you donate to us, show it, that would be the best. And that's the most important thing, just to change lives with people with epilepsy.
I love what you're saying, Francesca. And I'm sorry, Gary. Let me just jump in here.
Go ahead.
Because that literally is like a big part of my personal life.
I like seeing you motivated.
It doesn't happen often, but no. When I first started this whole medical marijuana thing, like there's a point that most activists have to like come out of the pot closet, and they have to just say, fuck it, let everybody know I smoke weed. And let everybody know that this is what I do, this is what I stand for. There was a point in time where like my parents are very old school Cuban conservative. And there was a point in time that when I was doing this, that they really just didn't get it. They just didn't understand. And my mom specifically had like a really hard time trying to understand what was going on with her son that was really passionate about getting marijuana legalized. And what happened was I introduced them to Giselle Delgadillo of Canna Moms, who has a son, Bruno, who has Dravet syndrome. And she was telling my mom, I'd never forget it. It's like you could see it just clicking for my mom. She's like, Giselle told my mom, my son's prescribed veterinary medicine, right? I have no other choice but to break the law to save my son's life. There's nothing else that's helping him, right? This is how my son is going to survive. As a mother, I have to make marijuana legal, right? And then my mom was like, oh shit, there's moms that are going to jail because they're trying to keep their kids, alive, right? Holy shit, this needs to be legalized right now, right? And that was just a big turning point. And it was when my mom could like really step into that scenario and put herself, if my son needs this, right, I'm going to jail. That's the way it goes. It really stands like with everything you were just saying, like a parent is going to take that risk. There's no if, and, or but about it, right? It doesn't matter what parent, what their background is, what their beliefs are. If it means breaking the law, right, smuggling marijuana from state to state, right, or my child dies, right, they're going to break the law. There's no if, and, or but about it.
Now, interestingly enough, just a few blocks from us, of course, is the Licata home, where Francesca Licata, who had a son with what they call dementia precox or bipolar disorder. And when he went ahead and bust up his school, she convinced the chief of police to let him stay home and let her mediate his issues at home, because she did not want him going to any of the asylums at the time, because they were not doing very well for any of those people. And so she medicated him at home using cannabis. And when cannabis got pulled away because of a big sweep, that is when he actually went ahead and killed his family. And giving Harry Anslinger his nice little narrative, which he took on to help make cannabis illegal in the first place. But this was a mother's love for her son to go ahead and make certain he had the right medicine, that it was all about, and the father too, who actually was doing the rolling for him at that time.
Nice.
And even the chief of police said, the damage that was done was not because of cannabis; it was for the absence of it. But that kind of thing never got to Harry Anslinger, because he took the file and he destroyed that part.
I agree with that.
Actually in the file.
Yeah, because if once a parent sees a child have a grand mal seizure, and I encourage the viewers, this is why, donate a minimum of $100. And if you go online and type grand mal seizure or tonic seizure and look at one, it is the most scariest thing to see in the world.
So scary.
So, yeah, it's so scary. I encourage a viewer just to go on YouTube and type and view one, because and if that's the medicine, a parent will do anything to go across the state to do that, and they're not going to say, I'm not going to take it. And so they'll go from state to state no matter what. They'll hide it in their suitcase, and especially if it works, because if all other medicines haven't worked, they're not going to be like, oh, I'm not going to give this to my child. Parents love their children, so they'll do anything. So donating to the cause, donating to research, making it known, making it predominant at walks and conventions pushes these all across the country, pushes it even more to say, look, we're here, we're powerful, and we know that's how politics works. So this is just how it is.
We don't have a lot of data in regards to how much cannabis was used for epilepsy at the turn of the century. We do know, however, that Park Davis was making an extract of cannabis that they were selling, and they were eventually backed off of it because of its illegality, and because they couldn't get the formula right. It kept on going, potent and subpotent, potent and subpotent. So they dropped that, and one of the things they started to develop after that was Dilantin. And actually, Park Davis as a company actually survived on Dilantin as one of their main products for many, many years, because epilepsy is so widespread across the country. And it was interesting that they actually switched from cannabis to Dilantin, but that was the case. But we have instances of cannabis being used for epilepsy as far back as, for instance, Pliny the Elder talked about Julius Caesar, who had tonic-clonic seizures.
I didn't realize it went back that far. Holy shit.
Well, he described basically pretty much to a T that Caesar had these tonic-clonic seizures, and they would put a cannabis cane wrapped in the leaves into his mouth, in part to keep him from swallowing his tongue. But they found out that when they did that, his seizures lasted much shorter period of time than if they didn't.
Really? I didn't notice that. I thought you were going to start talking about that O'Shaughnessy thing, like that medical marijuana, the first medical marijuana study or whatever.
Yeah, he did some interesting studies, and there was interesting studies in the 40s that were done that Anslinger actually had stopped.
Oh, really?
Yes, because they started out by using these THC analogs, and he got wind of it, and he made certain that the experiment itself in 1947 was stopped.
Huh. Oh,
nice guy, isn't he?
Francesca, on a different note, I actually have a question for you. With the little bit of experience that I have with epilepsy with my medical marijuana work, right? I actually have no idea how these walks actually work and how people how the foundation actually benefits from them. So, like, how can people get involved?
Good question.
Okay, so the cool thing about the Epilepsy Foundation, number one, is like I don't get paid anything. I'm an advisory board member. Most of our money goes to research and things to help people with epilepsy. Like 90% of it goes to that, which is, that's the wonder, because, a lot of these things. So you can, the way that the walks work is you sign up. We have a link on there, and then
I'm gonna hide your face with your flyer for a minute.
Yeah, you can snap it right there, and then it takes you there. That's the one to Tampa. That's the one that Move and Cureleaf signed up for the Tampa one. But you can also go to the one in Bradenton if you want. And then you sign up, and if you donate a minimum of $100, you can donate anything you want. Then you get a T-shirt, and then you can also volunteer. You can go online to the Epilepsy Foundation Florida and volunteer as well. But that's how they work. And you go, and there's going to be a big vendor event. It's a huge annual event, the first time ever that we're doing an annual event, and we haven't done a walk in 2 years because of COVID. Yeah. And then you walk. It's kind of like a small like 1.2 walk, like a very small, like not even a 5K, and you walk around. And then if anyone wants to sponsor, y'all can contact me. I can put it in a chat. That's how we have the sponsors. I'm still actually looking for doctors.
That's how this works. Like companies sponsor people who are walking.
You can. We have companies that just come in and sponsor us. The individual donations, like you can donate like $20 and walk, but to get a T-shirt, that's the amount. Once you register, you can donate $5 and walk. It doesn't really matter.
Okay.
Yeah, whatever you can afford. But we have like sponsors like Move and Cureleaf and other sponsors, but these are just for the registered people. And this is the huge State Awareness Day. We call it Go Purple Florida. Purple is because that's the color for epilepsy. And it's just convenient that the state of Florida is purple. And so that's what we did that with. But it's a great thing to do. You can volunteer, you can support, and it goes to research. It goes to helping people who can't. Some people don't have money for places to live, or we help them find it in the area, in our area, in Tampa, in the Tampa Bay area. And so, like, if you need help finding housing or counseling, or you're going through a hard time, we use that money for that as well. And we have case managers that help people because some people are on disability. So we do a lot of things for people and where our funding goes through. Or they need help with medicine. Some people can't even afford regular medicine. And then this would also we're starting to do all sorts of research as well. So there's a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, it seems like you got a lot of stuff going on. I just thank you. I didn't realize that it's been like a couple of years since a walk has happened. So there's and there's a lot of things that just need to get back into the swing of things. So I wasn't even really thinking about like nonprofits, and because me and Gary, we never stop.
No, we don't. We have no reason to.
Kano, where'd you go?
Right here.
Oh, I'm like magic. One second I'm there, 1 second I'm gone. No, but
if I had to throw any go ahead, Chris. Go ahead.
I was going to say, Francesca,
You just woke up. You might as well talk.
the Epilepsy Foundation, we appreciate everything you're doing for the patients, and I think that's always something that we at our organization at Suncoast Normal have striven to be at the forefront of, is making sure that patients are the center of our medical marijuana industry, not profits. And I know that's a big concern for a lot of people out there. Is these are sick people that need access to it. Carlos was talking earlier about Bruno, and just a personal story that I recall. My aunt had just passed away from liver failure in the hospital, and I was sneaking RSO in to help her out. Hopefully, that she would pull through, but she didn't. And I actually had a vial on me one day when I was at an event, and I saw Bruno go into one of those seizures. And to see that, the RSO stopped the seizure in its tracks is something that I was like, wow, this is real. It so many times along the way, I've wanted to stop fighting because I lost someone close to me in this fight, whether it was my dad passing away or my aunt passing away, and I wanted to just hang it up. I was like, you know what? I don't want to be an activist anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. The people that I was in this for, have passed on. But then when I see people like Bruno and young kids who can get a shot at life and living a decent life because of this, and I see people like yourself working with others to push this forward with the Epilepsy Foundation, it gives me the reason to want to keep fighting. And so I want to ask all of our viewers today that if you could do something out of the kindness of your heart, if you have the $100, sign up for the Epilepsy Walk, get the T-shirt. But even if you don't have that type of funds, make your own T-shirt and donate $5 and come out to the Epilepsy Walk.
Yeah, donate something. Yeah.
Every little bit counts, because you all have a sense of legitimacy in the halls of Congress and in Tallahassee that oftentimes Gary, Carlos, myself, we've sat in the room with Governor Ron DeSantis' staff and seen the disdain and we've sat in the room with both Senate Democrats and Senate Republicans and seen the dismissiveness because we're a marijuana legalization advocacy organization. But you all, as the Epilepsy Foundation, carry so much clout, and it's important that we forge these partnerships, because without you all being able to bring that clout and show that, look, we're a legitimate organization that's been around for a very long time helping sick people, and medical marijuana is something that provides relief where most other things don't. It's something that the politicians have to pay attention to.
Right. And that's why I was trying to find, finding doctors as sponsors, finding more people coming out to the events, getting more vendors. Then parents are like, oh, then that's why it's so important, because then parents are like, oh, the epilepsy, they see it. It's on we as a group saying, yes, we support this. But once you see the vendors, the doctors sponsoring us, coming out there saying, oh, because then parents are like, oh, I want that. Oh, the Epilepsy Foundation. Then more and more information gets on the site. Then the parents are like, oh, I need this help. And then that slowly becomes part of the case management, saying, oh, if you can't do this, do this. Oh, well, then Normal has these groups and the studies, and then it just slowly gets embedded, right? It becomes part of the case management stuff. And that's the goal. And that's why I'm doing this,
Francesca,
yeah.
What you just said right there just made things so clear for me. I mean, things are just so clear. I think it's time for a moment of clarity.
That was so smooth.
That's so cool.
It was so smooth, because that's how I see it, because it's not part of it's not that they don't want it part of the case management. It's just that you have to push it in there slowly. Like, I understand, I used to be in DC. I used to work in the federal government. I understand how politics works. Like, I know the game. Like,
Well, interestingly enough, in the times I've been in Tallahassee, I've had a chance to go to the Epilepsy Foundation's awards ceremonies. It was usually on the third floor of the Governor's Club, which is the exclusive place you only get to go to. It is kind of some kind of a special occasion. I remember when Matt Gaetz got his award again for putting out SB 1030 back in the day, and other prominent Republicans who have basically gotten those rewards year after year after year. So it the Republican folks in Tallahassee who are in control of it are always have a roots in trying to help out with epilepsy, which because it
yeah,
has that
no,
certain empathy to it.
we care, but everything's a slow process. Like, we voted for it, we want it. All the doctors that are on the board, that they agree with it. I said, but everything's a slow process, so we're just trying to slowly get it in. They were very happy to have the dispensaries as a supporter. Would love to have a doctors online to contacting me, um, just to be there to talk to the parents, because there will be parents there, just more and more. But it is a moment of clarity, and I would just love just kids just to be on medical marijuana and not to be on the drugs that I'm on. I'm grateful for, but I'm just old.
Well, you would be interested in knowing that this last week we got a Senate sponsor for our reciprocity bill.
Oh,
Now we got to
good.
work. Now we got to work on the House so that if when someone is coming into Florida and they have a medical card in another state, they can purchase products over here, so they can have the products here without having to break the law by taking it across state lines. And
That's good.
we are going to go ahead and push that for you so we can try to help out all the patients from other states who want to come here to to Florida and not freeze their tuchus off in Colorado.
That's right.
With all the epilepsy refugees, as we've called them,
The refugees. Yeah.
who have had to go over there. Now, in regards to today's news, let me just start out by mentioning the fact that for those who have had a chance to read Plato's Republic, it has this one little statement in it which says that necessity is the mother of invention. And basically, that means that when all else fails, something new happens out of necessity, and that is basically where we got Delta 8, because we had a system where we had CBD only, and sometimes it doesn't always work. And then we have states like Texas where it's still CBD only, and they have no intention of moving forward. Mm-hmm. And so, therefore, we took a look at this laboratory enhanced product. Delta 8 is in the hemp plant, but it's usually in very, very low quantities. But by using solvents and acids and things of that sort in a controlled atmosphere, you can go ahead and pull it out of the flower and then be able to make it and put it in other things. And that is basically how Delta 8 is made. And a lot of folks are upset about the fact that it's not an extraction, but more of a reaction. And so therefore, we're not certain about what other isomers are coming out of this product. And again, it's not regulated, because regulation sometimes is how would I put that? It's the killer of innovation. It really, really is, because oftentimes they stop you from doing the things that help you move forward. Same thing with the banking situation. We actually have so many problems in regards to banking in the industry that out of necessity, they're actually moving towards Bitcoin, because it is an unregulated currency, and they can't get to it right now, and they can't pull it back for those people who are trying to use the cannabis. So we have found oftentimes we have to go ahead and change things. Now, a lot of folks are not happy about Delta 8. Some people really, really like it. It's a mile high. It's kind of nice. And we haven't totally gotten all the regulation out of it. And some people are concerned about whether or not it's being made, in somebody's basement, that kind of situation. And other people take great care in making certain it's a fine product. And Carlos, you probably had these people come up and ask you those kind of questions in the shop?
Yeah, people ask me those type of questions all the time.
What do they say?
Yeah. Well, I want to get high, man. No, they come in and they do show quite a bit of concern. Not as much concern as they did with just like regular CBD. But there's quite a bit of concern about whether or not Delta 8 or any of the other cannabinoids, like THCO specifically, would be a pretty big one to share. But they show concern for whether or not there's any harmful chemicals in it. They specifically relating it really to spice. They think like this is going to be something similar to spice. There's a lot of differences, and I do think that Delta 8's a little bit safe, a lot safer than spice.
Oh yeah, we had police raids pulling all the spice out of every single gas station and corner store and flea market that was pulling out there, because there were folks who were having rather severe reactions against it, because it was not really a real product. It was a synthesized product that they would spray on, say, for instance, hay, and put it in bags with Scooby Doo on the cover, and try to push that. And it was just a bad situation altogether. And I'm glad we're distancing ourselves from it.
So I think the question is first off, whether or not Delta 8 is synthetic or whether or not it's a naturally occurring cannabinoid. And I think also the question is like whether or not all those solvents, those acids and whatnot that you use to make that conversion are still present in the final product. I think those are the two main concerns. And I think the answer always just kind of it depends.
Well, if I might rag on Texas just a little bit more,
go ahead. Go ahead.
Big state with a lot of problems, and their legislation is not putting all the greatest things out there. But last January, they actually very quietly decided that even though the DEA has not put Delta 8 into the controlled substance schedule, they actually put it in the state controlled substance as Schedule 1, right next to Delta 9. And just this last week, they actually had their very first arrest. In the little, not in Harris County where all the people are living, but in a little tiny county over on the east side called Brazos County. This woman who had bought her product legally and was driving in her car was stopped and was given a felony charge for having a Delta 8. I believe it was a vape cartridge in her car, and because it was a concentrate, it's automatically a felony, and so therefore, that's what Texas decided to do. They're actually going to start pushing it through. And when they asked the Attorney General, why is it done this way? And they said, well, to be honest with you, here's what we know. We know that Delta 8 can be synthesized from either hemp or cannabis. And so therefore, since we don't know which one it actually came from, we have to go ahead and make it all illegal.
Pretty dumb.
That's a very Texas mindset, mind you.
When
in doubt, arrest. It's kind of like stop and frisk.
But this CBD is okay. Like you can't tell if you get the CBD from cannabis or if you get it from hemp.
Yeah, exactly right. And for some people, CBD works absolutely perfectly for everything they need. Some people need more in the way of THC, but of course in Texas, you cannot get any more than 0.3% THC in any of the products. Although they had a bill last year which was going to raise it to 1%. Yaha. As far as Texas is concerned, we love Texas. It's our next door neighbor, but they got Oklahoma right above, where they've got a medical program which is absolutely fantastic. And of course, things are going on in Arkansas and all of the other states around Texas. But Texas, who has its own power grid, has no problem going down.
Free Joe Exotic.
I have a
Joe
question.
Exotic, that way, he has his own cannabis line.
Synthetic illegal? Synthetic marijuana illegal, and the cops hate it because it makes everyone go crazy.
Well, that was the spice stuff. There's other synthetic cannabis out there, like Marinol, that the drug companies make, and that they actually found some usage for. But to be honest with you, it doesn't work all that well. It's kind of like having a motor without a steering wheel. Having THC all by itself as synthesized, you don't have any guidance in regards to how to actually make it a medical product.
I'm glad Francesca asked that question, because I think it's important for us to give a quick history lesson here in understanding why synthetic cannabinoids exist in the first place. It's because of the Schedule 1 status preventing research on cannabis. The fact that scientists in the lab want to research this and see how it helps, and that they actually can't, because you have to jump through 1,000,001 hoops to get access just to research on the sole grower of government's cannabis, which is at the University of Mississippi, Oxford. Now in the modern era, and when I say modern era, I mean the last couple of years, we're seeing an expansion of DEA applicants who can actually grow cannabis for the government. But what happened was research scientists had to synthesize in the lab, and I believe it was the University of Auburn that first did it, JWH 108, which was a synthetic version of THC, Delta 9 THC. And that was eventually hijacked, if you will, that formula. Folks figured it out, and they started selling, the K2, the spice, with this JWH 108 on it. Well, when the Florida legislature and other government agencies all across the country moved to make synthetic, THC and synthetic cannabinoids illegal, which they're not safe for human consumption in the first place. They were used on laboratory rats. These producers, these illegal drug makers, changed up the formula to where they weren't even, Gary, to your point, using synthetic cannabis anymore. They were spraying just random things on stuff to get people high, and it was causing brain damage. So that's part of the, when Spice first came out, I remember it was originally just that JWH 108, and then they changed up the formulas. And now if you're smoking that stuff, I mean, yeah, to what Francesca was saying, people are going, experiencing psychosis and all that, but it's not even cannabis, and it's not even synthetic cannabis anymore. It's something totally different.
And I definitely thank you for pointing that out, Kano. But I definitely want to point out that, and this might be an unpopular thing to point out.
Oh, I hate you already.
But synthetic doesn't necessarily mean bad, right? Now, if I could propose a question to you guys, right? What would be the chemical makeup of synthetic water?
Well, that's a bit different.
H2O.
Yeah. H2O. So, I mean,
and you can synthesize water.
So here's the thing, right? So Delta 8 is a molecule. It's a molecule structure, right? And in order to synthesize, yes, molecular molecular structure, right? So in order to synthesize this molecular structure, right, scientists in the lab need to make this specific molecular structure into doing that.
Yes.
So whether or not Delta 8 is synthetic, I don't think matters a whole lot, right? What I think matters is whether or not those solvents, those acids that are used in order to change the molecular structure, Gary, from CBD to Delta 8 are still in there, right?
Yeah.
I don't think it's whether or not the Delta 8 is an issue, right? I think it's whether or not the distillation process that this company uses to bring out their Delta 8 is a good process, right? Well, I think that's a thing.
It's the double-edged sword of regulation. I mean, Greg Gerdeman has said before, in a situation where the process itself is not fully regulated, people try to take shortcuts. They get away with actually leaving solvents in, that kind of situation.
Mm-hmm.
And again, if it's not fully studied, we don't know if the reaction has gone too far, what other isomers are coming out of the cannabis that may not work as well as they're supposed to and aren't supposed to be there. Now, I can tell you that right now, one of the things we're going to hear about in the next session is THCP. THCP is a cannabinoid which is oftentimes in trace amounts in cannabis, but they're finding ways to go ahead and augment it and bring it out. And you may have heard last year, they have found a THC that's 30 times more potent than regular THC. That's the stuff. And the reason it's more potent is because it's often found in trace amounts in cannabis. So when they bring it up to an amount where we could actually interact with it, they don't know just how far, just what will come out of it. Yet I have actually read articles where people have said that it keeps them high for like 2 or 3 days. So this is kind of a situation where we're messing with the plant. The plant, it came to us in a certain form with these certain cannabinoids, these certain terpenes, and those particular things were created to go after certain health conditions in the human body. It's how we even evolved, for God's sakes.
Gary, I gotta say,
those of us who smoked and toked survived.
I saw Carlos's reaction when you say you can be high for 2 or 3 days, and Carlos, myself, and probably every other pothead watching, we're like, and that's a bad thing?
Like dead ass. It's like the difference in reaction depending on the audience. Right? I'm sure like no to pot people were like, oh my God, 3 days? Oh my gosh, they're gonna die.
Well,
like it's like that truth commercial where it's like the friend is like, oh, she
Melted
used to
into the
be so much
couch.
cooler, now she's melted into the couch all the time. And I'm like, I'm trying to smoke the
what is
melt me
it?
in the
The
couch shit.
half-baked
I'm smoking
movie?
the fucking I can't find my key shit.
That's
I want
in
the
the
melt me in the
half-baked
couch shit.
movie. That's when you turn in the guy in the half-baked movie, the guy on the couch.
Yeah,
Yes,
absolutely.
yes, the guy on the couch. Indeed,
Yeah.
indeed.
We don't have much research into this except for these Timothy Leary types who go through anecdotal research by saying we're going to go ahead and take this stuff and go ahead and describe the experience for the next 3 days. That's not research, guys. That's Timothy Leary. Okay.
You know,
Wait,
to point, but to your point, what Carlos said earlier, Gary, is that we can cut down on the Timothy Leary experiences. We can cut down on all these novel cannabinoids having to rise to the top if the government would just do the right thing and legalize the plant as it is in its natural form and allow people to grow it themselves.
that's right.
I'm also
Yeah,
like,
and I think that's just to say a perfect example. Like, and so I've watched all the CNN Sanjay Gupta series, but in the very first series, when in Colorado with the Charlotte's Web, there was a woman who lived in New Jersey, and New Jersey made this ridiculous like synthetic weed that you had to take home,
yeah,
and
I remember
then
that.
yeah, and this woman, she was trying to make it for her daughter and to try to help it, and then they were like, you have to boil it and do all this stuff to try to make the oil, right? And it didn't work, and the daughter was, and then the whole family had to they had both of them to quit their jobs, move to Colorado, get a job so the daughter could have the oil in Colorado so she could have a new life.
And one thing that Rick Simpson has said oftentimes is if you're going to go ahead and start making these products at home, if you don't have enough ventilation, you can get into some serious issues if you don't know how to control the reaction.
Okay,
Gary,
Francesca,
I'm
sorry, Kano,
go ahead,
I gotta get this out, man. I gotta get this out. All right, so Francesca, I've got a very important question to ask you, right? So I recently took a trip to Colorado, right? I'm very used to eating RSO from Florida dispensaries, right? Typically, my dose whenever I eat, and we were joking about it in the beginning of that, I ate 300 milligrams before the show. Typically, my dose whenever I eat cannabis is about 100 milligrams a dose, right? So I'm in Colorado, this fucking mecca of marijuana in America, right? And I'm freaking out because all of their edibles
America.
are 10 milligrams a piece, and I'm thinking I gotta fucking eat 10 pieces of candy every time I want to eat cannabis, right? And none of the places there are selling an RSO, right? I can't get anything that has my dose of marijuana, right? So people, and those laws are made because people who don't smoke weed don't understand dosing, right? And they don't understand that there's some people that need 100 milligrams per dose, right? And yet they limit the marijuana per edible because they're scared of the kids and all of that. Let me ask you, is if somebody with epilepsy could be high for 3 days, right? If somebody could have their medicine last for 3 days long and worry very little bit about medicating, wouldn't that be an ideal situation for them?
Yeah, and I think like, so Ryan, my husband, he takes RSO oil, and you need this pretty strong dose to go to sleep when you have ADHD and have epilepsy, because that RSO oil pretty much is there to make your sleep, to go to sleep. 10 milligrams would not be enough.
I take my RSO to get out of the house in the morning.
Now, obviously, one of the things you have to have when you're having epilepsy, when you have that seizure, is you have to have some kind of acute remediation because you want to stop that seizure as soon as it starts. But if you could stop it before it starts, if you can have a preventative measure by having a a concurrent dose every day so that you don't have any seizures at all, wouldn't that ultimately be the best?
Yeah,
right.
like,
So for
I'm
different
not an
people,
expert, but if somebody's takes something and it lasts for 3 days, right? And that specific thing can help prevent a seizure, right?
yeah. So
Wouldn't an
like,
epileptic patient really want to take that?
yeah. So I would say that. So I'm obviously not a doctor, but so if especially an adult, right? I would not experiment with that because
Be honest, please.
yeah, I would probably use it for sleep, which I'm going to go get a license for because it helps to shut my brain off. Because as an epileptic person, you get more shakes at night, which can prevent a seizure. But as an adult, I like to say my brain has adapted to what I call the toxic pharmaceutical drugs. So it works. But as someone who is like younger, you could probably try it. But someone who's an epileptic patient, you would take it like probably a daily dose twice a day, like I take it as medicine. It's like the oils. But you don't get high off those oils. It's just an oil. And I'm sure you don't get and it would probably be a pretty strong dose. Like it would probably be like 20, 30 milligrams just to stop it. Because especially if you have strong seizures, like if you have a grand mal seizure like mine, I take 450 milligrams twice a day. You're dealing with something pretty strong. And I was told by the doctor that there's stronger people. I was like, what? I was like, I thought that was high.
As a scientist and as somebody who grew up in the quote unquote legitimate drug world, because my dad was a pharmacist, I think that it would be best if we could have some kind of research done. The way that MAPS has done research on psychedelic mushrooms to see how the brain changes and what form it changes, so that you can tailor the dose properly and have a safe product by saying it meets all these benchmarks and standards.
Yeah.
You don't have to put it in a pill. You can still use it as cannabis, but find some way of standardizing it so that you don't affect the vulnerable out there with a product which won't work enough or may work too much.
I think neurologists today, to be really honest, I have a really excellent neurologist in DC. His name is Dr. Ghulam Mohammadi. I know he believes in medical marijuana, but I think he believes it in starting with kids young. But I think I think they overprescribe pills, because I'm hearing that they're giving like 1,500 milligrams right off the bat. I think they're just scared. So they start really high instead of gradually.
That's no way to titrate.
Yes, yeah. And I hear that, and there's good neurologists, but I have to tell you, there's a lot of bad ones. Like, I'm really lucky my dad was a doctor. He was like, no, you're not doing that. Like, sometimes I feel like people with epilepsy are like an experiment, and you really have to like watch them, and it's better just to start off at a low dose and like at what I'm at, and then say, okay, if that doesn't work, come back and just monitor it. And yeah, and that's scary, but no one needs to be a zombie.
True. The thing with research, you have to have a control group somehow. And of course, if we're talking about something that affects epileptics, you have to have an epileptic in the control group as well, because somebody who doesn't have it, you're not going to be able to figure out whether the product is working or not. But the question is, in ethics, can you actually give somebody who's an epileptic a placebo?
Right.
That kind of like puts that borderline in regards to ethical clinical practice. So they have to go with whatever they can in regards to finding ways to get a product and know that it's fully efficacious and fully
right.
safe.
And people who do take, even if you are controlled, like say like me, I recommend just to have medical marijuana for getting the shakes, because you still get something just to calm the brain, to be able to sleep better at night. I recommend to have it as a supplement, because it helps. Like, it helps with the brain. It helps to keep you up. Oh my God, because you're so tired. The sativa will help you have energy. I recommend that. Because you get so tired during the day because the medicine makes you sleepy and you can't function. So it's good to have anyways. You need all that. So even if it's controlled, it needs to be. I thoroughly believe it should be part of a regimen.
I say we give everybody THC.
No, I did too, but in regards to Delta 8, with all due respect, I think it pretty much is still essentially a recreational substance. We don't know if it has any medicinal value as of yet. And do you really want to experiment on yourself with something which may or may not work? That is the issue at this point in time, because they haven't had any research before it came out. So
well, let's chime in on that real quick, then, Gary. I mean, look, I use the Delta 8 products that I acquired from Chillum, and I can tell you that it brought me relief from anxiety, relief from pain. Not in the level that I would get from some of the Delta 9 products that are available out there, both in the medical market and the legacy market. But again, it's about access in many cases too. Folks, even still in Florida, where there are hundreds of dispensaries, there are entire areas where folks don't have access to medical cannabis dispensary, close by their home. They can't afford delivery service. Folks, necessarily working class folks, can't afford the doctor fees and the recommendations and to get the card. So, again, this goes back to access, is that Delta 8 provides an alternative. And yes, it is consistent that it really does matter who's manufacturing it. And it matters the retailer that you're getting it from and whether or not they do their due diligence to research the manufacturers, the process, the safety, and the efficacy. So should the government get involved and regulate? Right now the Department of Agriculture is regulating our hemp industry and is doing a fairly good job. Florida has some of the most stringent labeling requirements when it comes to its hemp market and hemp products. But all in all, again, all of this goes back to we wouldn't even be talking about this if the government would just do right by people and legalize it. And our state government can do so much more. And the reason I want to say that they can do so much more is because, they've had this system in Florida since 2017. And we see other states now rolling out not just medical, but they're rolling out adult use programs that get it, that are fixing it. New York passed a 128-page bill, but in that bill, for all what conservatives talk about, oh, what's in the bill? What's in the bill? I'll tell you what's in the bill.
Regulation.
Well, in the bill, adults 21 and over can possess and purchase marijuana products from licensed retailers. Effective immediately, once they passed that bill, there were no penalties for public possession of up to 3 ounces of flour or 24 grams of concentrates. So, adults are also able to cultivate up to 6 plants for personal use, with 12 per household.
Wow.
And people with marijuana convictions for marijuana related activity automatically have their records expunged. But I think the most important part of that bill is that there are protections against discrimination in housing, educational access, and parental rights for people who consume cannabis or work in the cannabis industry. And those are protections that currently do not exist in Florida.
And those protections are essentially a piece of social equity. Do not take down the people who need to be brought up. That's the basic issue there.
Yeah. And they also in the bill allow for social consumption sites, delivery services.
Nice.
But I think the most important thing is their employment standards. Gary, you and I have been fighting for employment protections in Florida for the past 4 years now.
Yep.
And in New York, they have become the first state to set such an explicitly high bar where both public sector and private sector employers are barred from penalizing people who test positive for THC, with very small exceptions. And there are people, the exception is people who have CDL licenses. That's about it.
Well, that makes sense.
You know
what? It's interesting that you say that about location, because Ryan and I travel back and forth from the Keys, and he's like looking for a dispensary. I have never seen one. The closest is Miami. I do not. He's never seen one.
There is a True Leaf in Key West, for what it's worth. Speaking of True Leaf, they actually have a Delta 8 product. So I don't know the answer to this one, but if you go into a True Leaf and buy a Delta 8 product, do the milligrams of Delta 8 that you buy come off of your recommendation as THC? Does anybody know that one?
I mean, I would assume so.
Yeah, I would assume so. There's nothing sold in a medical dispensary that doesn't go into the registry.
Well, then why the heck would anybody buy it if they could buy it someplace else and not lose the milligrams off of the recommendation?
Oh, big one there. Big one there. I mean, that's also
Just a thought.
the big
Available at Chillum Hemp Dispensary in Ybor City, Florida.
But also the fact that the amount of what patients are prescribed or allowed to have should be increased significantly. I mean, what Carlos said of what he has to utilize, in order to help him. One other thing I wanted to definitely clear up was the smell of cannabis being used as probable cause for a police stop is also illegal in New York now, as well as in Virginia. And that is a key criminal justice reform measure. I think that has to go into any state that's trying to move forward and move past prohibition, is that as long as the police can use cannabis as a reason to drag you out your car and try and find something wrong. I mean, we got deputies in Florida, in Jackson County, who are planting heroin on people in order to make collars, to make their quota for the month. So Florida has a highly corrupt law enforcement system. I mean, the cops in Miami are corrupt. They just got their police chief out of there for investigating corrupt officials. The cops in Tampa are corrupt. And except for those TPD officers that are the ones that protect Chillum, we have a DUI.
Ybor cops are good.
Ybor cops are good. The DUI squad in Tampa is corrupt as shit. One of the most corrupt units in the country. By federal standards, by investigation, by anecdotal evidence. So, if we have a corrupt law enforcement structure in Florida, we have to hamstring them. We have to take these tools that they utilize to ruin people's lives out of their toolbox. And one of them is marijuana smell as probable cause for searches.
I gotta
so
say,
one more legislation piece would be to eliminate that as due cause to go ahead and do a search. And that would create the standardization, because right now we have discrimination of the police if they want to go ahead and put you in jail or give you a civil citation. They're given a lot of leeway.
Yeah.
So you really have to make friends with your local gendarme.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say. Like the local cops in Ybor treat me so much better. Like cops treat you better if you run a business, right? And they understand that business has a big part to do with their money making. There's specific cops that are made in certain areas that their job is to reach out and to be friendly with local businesses, right? So one of my favorite things to do is to call the cops on a shoplifter and have them go out into the town and look for a bong and try to find somebody that stole a bong from the place. If anybody ever steals a bong from Chillum, I will call the cops on you, and I will make the cops look for you and arrest your ass for stealing a bong.
So don't cop a bong, or the cops will come back after it.
Well, Carlos, I think the cops need to arrest that chicken that ran up in your shop and did all that damage. See, he's still on the loose, from what I hear.
It's so hard to cuff a chicken, you know that?
Matter of fact, Carlos, you need to get a wanted poster and put it right up in the window there at Chillum with the chicken's picture, man.
I think I saw that on a Family Guy.
Yeah, exactly. I could just see Carlos and the chicken fighting like Family Guy.
Actually, I was in Santa Fe, and there was a guy who was wanted for stealing books. On the books. Stealing
bookstore. Wow.
Were those the ones that they expected to burn that night?
No, he was stealing really fancy books, and then he would go, and then he was also wanted in the art store for stealing the fancy. He was wanted all over the Santa Fe Plaza.
Wow.
Well, the guy is very generous with his time. But we are working on regulations right now. Like I said, we were lucky enough to get a sponsor for the reciprocity bill. We also got a Senate sponsor now for the employee protection bill, the medical protection bill, and also the expansion of qualifying conditions. We all have now Senate sponsors for those particular 4 bills, and we got to get ones in the House. So we would like you guys to go ahead and contact your local representatives, the ones that you are a constituent of, and talk to them about whether they'd be interested in sponsoring any of these 4 bills, because these are things that are important to so many people. And there is interest even within the Republican Party. We're going to go in front of the HHS committee this week, and we're going to see what we can do about getting those put through. But I would always recommend that you contact your legislature if might be interested in helping to sponsor either the employee protection bill, the medical protection bill, the reciprocity bill, or the bill to expand qualifying conditions. These are things that will definitely help people because it'll delineate a lot of things and remove a lot of problems and issues.
And lots of love to you, Gary Stein, for working so hard and diligently on trying to influence Florida politics. We are the only normal chapter out there, at least that I know of, that in Florida that will write legislation and try to influence lawmakers to adopt it. So that is such a valuable thing you do.
I've even been asked to go ahead and craft some legislation for some people who are interested in other things that they see as important. And we'll look into those as well. But we want to make certain that we protect our medical program. I mean, we are going forward, and we eventually may have rec because of the fact that, I hate you call it that. I'll call it adult use anyway. We have Charlie Crist, who has said already that he would legalize cannabis if he's brought into office. Nikki Fried, who has said that she would legalize it. But she's also said we will make certain there's a separation between the medical and the adult use program, which is important. I think that was a great issue for her to bring up as well. We don't know where Annette Taddeo stands. So if anybody in South Florida knows where she stands, let us know.
I'm curious to find out where Cano's leaning. He hasn't really said much, whether he's Chris or Nikki Fried or if he's undecided.
Yeah, I'm reserving my endorsement for being stellarly impressed. Both candidates have come out strong and swinging. In the grand scheme of things, I'm still on the fence. I need to be convinced. So if making me commissioner of marijuana regulation is in the books, then that candidate would probably be the one that would get my endorsement.
Chris Pino for marijuana commissioner.
But all jokes aside, I think having major party candidates take unabashed stances on this. I mean, Charlie Crist said, as governor, I will make sure people have the right to grow marijuana. If you told me that Chain Gang Charlie was going to say that shit 10 years ago, I'd call you a bold-faced liar.
I would say so too. That's really shocking.
Yeah. So there's always the politics make strange bedfellows argument, but then also you have Nikki Fried, who was a marijuana lobbyist prior to being commissioner of agriculture. So each of these candidates have their own take, and they come from a different place of where they derive their sense of justice from in this.
I'm Team Nikki. I'm gonna go out and say it right now. I'm Team Nikki Fried just for how well she's regulated the hemp industry in Florida. But I'm willing to bring up I don't think you gave her enough criticisms actually, because you brought up some good criticisms. A lot of people say she's really embedded with the corporate cannabis world.
Well, let's bring her on the show and we'll have that conversation, because if it's a conversation that needs to be had, we'll have it.
I think we should.
Yeah, because I mean, look, as much as I want a candidate that's going to advocate for us, if you're advocating selling us boof, you're not the candidate for me, right? and don't sell me no boof, man.
Now, on the other side, Ron DeSantis has what is called the incumbent's dilemma, which is when you're campaigning for progress, how can you do that when you're the incumbent and you have to say, I'm going to do more than I'm doing right now? Which is basically the issue that he has to deal with. He has to maintain the status quo in order for him to move forward as the incumbent. And right now, the status quo is not what we're looking for.
Gary, I'm glad we talked about this last week. Ron DeSantis's, Office of Medical Marijuana Use continues to support the status quo in a sense of it continues to support institutionalized racism. It continues to support a corporate-centric and not a patient-centric system. And when we're looking at social equity, we've been, folks have been fighting for a black farmer to get a license, and then they release the regulations, and black farmers are essentially paying almost triple of what Trulieve and those other dispensaries paid for their application fees. So, it's disgusting.
And just as I had predicted, somebody was going to call discrimination on that. And it actually, Nikki Fried has called for an investigation into the rulemaking process to find out why they went from $60,000 for an application process to $142 for the very first African American license.
Oh, shit, we're over time for the show.
We are.
Oh my God.
But that's because we can't stand not talking.
Well, we've had such a great show today. Francesca, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it.
I was very proud to see the Epilepsy Foundation take a formal stance on employment protections and much of the legislation that we're working to advocate for. And we want to continue to work with you all in Tallahassee to advocate for the folks that we all love and care about. And those are patients who suffer from chronic debilitating conditions like epilepsy, like our veterans suffering from PTSD. And if medical cannabis is what helps, then that's what we need to continue to advocate for. So thank you for your advocacy. Everyone, go to the Go Purple Florida Epilepsy Walk, sign up, get you a t-shirt, but donate what you can, put a team in. It's going to be November 6th in Tampa, and then there's another one at the same exact time in Bradenton. So Francesca, tell us some more details and close.
November 6th. Yeah, it's in Tampa.
We just lost her, but we do have her link up there.
Yeah.
And one more quick note: Halloween is this week. If you hear of anybody giving out gummies from their home that are infused, tell me their address so I can be there and shake them. Because who gives out their medicine? Seriously,
only tell me if they give out 100 milligram edibles.
There you go.
Yes, there's look, parents, check your kids' Halloween candy for edibles. You'll be pleasantly disappointed that there is no free weed in the kids' Halloween candy. So, but again, everyone just join us in the rotation next Sunday. We need your time, treasure, and talent as part of this movement. So become members of Suncoast Normal. And again, if you join another Normal chapter, by all means, that's great. But join Suncoast Normal. I constantly get, hey, I joined it and I didn't get my free t-shirt. Well, we don't give out free t-shirts at Suncoast Normal, but we do give out an amazing membership kit, which comes with that beautiful lapel pin you can see on Gary's jacket there, your official Suncoast Normal membership card. And while supplies last, we still have the Suncoast Normal mask available. So if you've bought your membership, go down to Chillum, ask them to.
I apologize, my computer.
No worries, Francesca. We just we're so glad that you joined us today. If you have any closing thoughts, but now's the time.
Okay, yeah, please join. Please come to the walk. Y'all are part of the cause to make a difference with medical cannabis, because like Chris said, the Epilepsy Foundation is nationwide and it's national, and the state of Florida is very big. And the more that people join and the more that we can get people to make a difference, that parents will become aware and get their kids and people and adults, and it will make a difference. Like in that moment of clarity, come join the walk, come get questions, and then we can get even more donors, more people involved. It's $100 and you can get a t-shirt. And if you can't, $5, like Chris said, make your own t-shirt. And the more support we get, the more that we can even implement that as part of our thing. So please come and ask questions, and we can make a difference. One day at a time, and we can change just like we've had in the past couple of years, and it can be part of it.
Respect.
Bye.